of the October 1975, and I'm interviewing Rabbi Kraft. Where and when did you first encounter Jewish survivors of the Holocaust? And who were these people? Were they concentration camp victims or individuals who hid during the war?
The first individual that I came across was either in late April or in May of 1945, and I met him in Foggia, Italy. I think I've written about the individual. His name is Samuel Wagshall, and he is here in this country right now, and he's acting as a rabbi. I believe he is in Atlantic City. This individual was in one of the concentration camps, and he was subject to all the beastly rigors that our brethren had been subjected to in these camps. Another individual, I make mention of him, one who was doing a little bit of business by selling stamps, was, I believe, an individual who might have hidden and survived in that particular, in that instance. Now, I met many adults, and I met many youngsters in the camps in the southern part of Italy. I visited those camps several times in October of 1945. Most of them, I believe, had been survivors of the concentration camps, and I might have written about one or two of them, how they survived. If you would like to have some interesting details, let me tell you of several experiences. I doubt whether I've mentioned it in the written records. I remember one evening, this was a little bit cool, even though it was in the southern part of Italy, at the in the heel of Italy. We were walking behind approximately 200 youngsters. There were altogether about 8,000 or 9,000 people, but of the 8,000 or 9,000 people, there were very, very few youngsters, young people alive. There were about 200. And they were marching. Most of them had only a short sleeve shirt, and I questioned some of them, why don't you wear a little bit heavier clothing? And the answer was, we just don't have it here. But they were marching almost in military step. Their leaders were Palestinian Jews. Some of them had been with the British Army, and they sort of took a leave of absence in order to work with the survivors of the Holocaust. And they were teaching these youngsters, instructing them in Hebrew. They seemed to be extremely well-disciplined, not only well-disciplined, but well-motivated. And they were singing a song that I can never forget. And the song was, Mir bauen a Land zum Zukunft a Welt. I don't remember the entire verse, but that stuck in my memory. Mir bauen a Land zum Zukunft a Welt. Mir bauen a Land zum Zukunft a Welt. You know, we're building a country and for the future a world. I was struck by the fact that they thought that in building a country, they would also build a world, a better kind of a world. I asked the kids later on as to whether they wouldn't like to go, for example, to America. I said, America is a land of plenty and abundance. You'll be able to live well. Why do you want to go to Palestine? You know how difficult it is. The British are making it difficult for us to go to Palestine. And invariably the answer was, we have lived before under the domination of other people. We want to live in a land that we can call our own. And only there we feel that we will have freedom, and freedom to develop ourselves. as Jews and committed, if we so desire, to our tradition. That was the inevitable response that I received on the part of a great many. I don't know whether in my written letters to my wife, whether I designated the food that they had, but the food was rather minimal. It was a fairly large piece of bread, a bowl of soup, and some vegetable. That was their main meal. They had it that day, they had it the day before, they had it the next day, but they were happy with what was given to them. Another incident, if you want me to recollect, Chaplain Bernard Ziskin, an extremely devoted individual, devoted both to the army and also to the Jewish cause. He and I and a young lad, maybe 12, maybe 13, usually they were undersized, were standing right at the shore of the Mediterranean Sea, south, not far from this camp. And we were looking eastward in the direction of the Middle East, in the direction of Palestine. And this youngster said, you know, the British are making it very difficult for us. They're preventing us from getting into the land of Palestine. And if only God, as I recollect he spoke Yiddish, if only God would perform a miracle and split the Mediterranean Sea as he did in days of old, according to the Bible story, then we wouldn't be afraid of the British, we wouldn't be afraid of their ships, and we wouldn't be afraid of their military might, but with the miraculous help of God, we would be able to go freely to the land of Palestine. That's a very distinct recollection.
Now, what type of assistance were you able to offer these Jews?
We were able to collect a great deal of material from the Army. The Army then, in October, was beginning to break up, and much of the stuff they were ready to destroy. And I prevailed upon one of the commanding officers that I gather up medical supplies as much as possible, and blankets, and I think I received contributions from the GIs, non-Jews as well as Jewish boys. The Jewish boys, of course, were very, very ready to give whatever they could in the form of clothing, in the form of blankets. We gathered them together, and if I mistake not, we received permission from the commanding officer to use 2 trucks to transport this material. Also, my wife, who was of great help, was gathering packages, and we stored them in my chaplaincy quarters, and we brought such packages, whatever they were, mostly clothing, down to the people, to those living in the displaced camps in the southern part of Italy.
Was this a massive campaign to get clothes, or was just a packages?
As I recollect, my wife, as I pointed out in one of the letters, was like a one-man JDC committee. She gathered, as I remember, several hundred packages. So it was done on her part on a fairly large scale. But I believe that she was the person through whom I dealt with other people in the congregation. And I'm of the opinion that she was able to get a great many packages from members of the congregation and send them to us.
Now, before going to Europe, did you expect to encounter Jewish survivors?
I don't know whether I gave it much thought. I didn't know where I was going, by the way. I didn't know whether I was going to Italy, whether I was going to the Orient. I imagine, this is my opinion, that if I were to go to Europe, to Italy, that it was my yearning hope that I would come across survivors of the Holocaust.
But you weren't told of that possibility by JWB or any other Jewish organization?
I have no recollection of that. I don't remember. I might have been told, but I don't remember.
Now, what other experiences did you have with the remnants of European Jewry during that period of time in Italy? In other words, how were you able to help them?
Well, I've told you essentially how I was able to help them, what I did down with the camps, but I think it was Foggia. There was a train station, if I recollect, and the survivors were coming through on the trains, and I was alerted by, I don't know, remember who it was, through the JWB office or through the Joint Distribution Committee, I don't remember that, the survivors would be coming through, and to meet them if they stopped and to do whatever I could for them. I'm not sure if I brought them any material at all, but in Foggia I came across a few survivors, and also in Naples, and I went to Naples rather frequently, and I think I make a mention of one of the individuals that I came across. And whatever help I could give to such an individual, I would give. Now, that was in Europe. There was a different situation when I went to Germany. I arrived there sometime in January of '46. If you want me to describe that situation. Now, in Germany, I had an excellent setup. I had a very, very large home. A home that was so large that not only were there chaplain's quarters, my private sleeping quarters, but there was a large hall that was used as a synagogue. And the Jewish community office was set up also in that very spacious home.
What was this area? What town are we talking about?
Now, this was in Bremen, Germany. And that was the headquarters for the entire area. Bremerhaven was the port. Bremen was the headquarters. And my quarters were in Bremen. I don't remember how many Jewish civilians there were in Bremen. I gather there must have been close to 100. 60 or 70 of them had been Bremen citizens. The authorities, the military authorities, would not permit Jews to come from the camps. Now, the Bergen-Belsen camp was about 60 or 65 miles away. They would not permit those Jews who were still there, and I met them Purim time of that year, to come and live in Bremen. So any civilian Jews who were in Bremen had to be either citizens of Germany who had lived in Bremen, or Jewish citizens, civilians, who were doing some work for the army. And I dare say there must have been 25 or 30 more such civilians. In Bremen, I set up a large room with shelves, and I received many, many packages from home, again through the great efforts of my wife. I set aside 3 or 4 days to meet with every one of the civilians in Bremen, the Jewish civilians. And one or two, they stand out in my memory. One couple by the name of Ralph and Doris Diener.
do you spell the last name?
Diner, despite the fact that it sounds like diner. Now, they were an amazingly fine couple. How they survived is just simply a mystery. He finally found himself in a Polish labor camp, and let it be known that he was a Christian. Because he was rather intelligent, they said, "We don't have a priest here, and you will have to act as a priest." Fortunately, he knew enough about the Christian religion, about the Mass that was held, to be able to pretend that he was leading them in Mass and in services. What had happened previous to his coming to this Polish work camp was that he and his son, he had an only son who was about 11, 12 years of age, and he found himself in the midst of a large group of Jews rounded up by the Germans. And they began arbitrarily selecting people to go on these trains. And they grabbed his son from him. And he didn't know whether he should have resisted or not. It worried him, and he had spent many sleepless nights. I reassured him. I told him that if he didn't do that, he probably would have been killed on the spot. Of course, he never heard from his son again, an only son. His wife was able to pass herself as a non-Jew, and she was working as a maid with a non-Jewish couple in Poland. She's fair, and she's, I believe, blue-eyed, and could easily pass as a Nordic even. Apparently, someone must have discovered who she was, because she found herself to be in the ghetto. Happily, this was towards the close of the war, and she was liberated. I'll never forget an experience that I had in walking with her and her husband during the Passover week of 1946. We were walking along the Weser River, and she told me of her experience in the ghetto. She said, "I saw a bird flying above, and I said, 'Lucky bird you are. At least you have freedom.' And I almost hoped that I were such a bird. And I saw a dog scrounging through the streets of the ghetto. And I said to the dog, 'You're an unfortunate creature because you're a Jewish dog here in the ghetto, but still you can leave this ghetto.' And I saw a cat that was gaunt and miserable looking. And I envied the cat, the dog, the birds. And now it's impossible to believe that I'm free and looking forward to go to a land of freedom." This couple, Diener, I keep in touch with them. They're living here in Long Island, a remarkable couple. Now, any other questions?
Yes. Did you ever collect guns, ammunition, or money to be sent to Palestine?
I never have been a collector of guns, and I never collected any ammunition. And I don't remember having sent any money to Palestine. I've made my contributions, as every devoted Jew should make his contributions to Palestine.
Fine. Now, how would you characterize the role of the chaplains during the period that you were in Italy? Specifically, your own role.
Well, I can characterize my role and the role of Bernard Ziskin, another chaplain, and I met in Paris while waiting for reassignment in the fall and winter of 1945. I met a great many other Jewish chaplains, And I believe all of them felt that it was their duty to do as much for the surviving Jews as they possibly could. All of them felt, even as I did. I don't believe that my role was in any way unique.
Was it crucial?
I don't know what you mean by was it crucial.
Crucial to the Jews that you met, in the sense of getting them whatever they needed. In other words, what did you provide for them? Was it a spiritual, did they need that?
I think we provided them two things. First of all, we encouraged them. We added to their spirit, although it was remarkable that they themselves showed courage and they had an inner spiritual resource as well. But, of course, we helped them, and they recognized that we were one with them, that they have Jews who are completely with them and would like to do as much as they possibly could for them. And that was of importance to them. And then we were able to provide them with clothing and sometimes give a meal here and there. As I've indicated, we were able to provide them with medicine and with blankets, and that amounted to a considerable amount in money terms and in as far as medical goods are concerned.
What do you think, and this is the final question, might have happened if you had not been on the scene?
I'm not sure what might have happened. My own feeling is that it made a tremendous difference that there were so many Jewish chaplains on the scene. That made, because some of them were able to help in the ways that I've helped, and in other ways as well. For example, I was able to help the Dieners come sooner to this country because I interceded with, I don't know who was there representing the United States government. He came in a little bit later. What do you call him?
Consul?
A consul, yes. Well, I think he was a consul. I was able to... I wasn't able to see him in person, but I wrote a letter and said that I would like to see him in case he couldn't, to see to it that this couple gets out on the first boat coming to the United States. As a matter of fact, they arrived in the United States in June of 1946, the very week that I did, so they were able to get out. Well, I think chaplains were able to do things of that nature as well. And then there were many Jews survivors, who insisted only upon going to Israel. I'm under the impression that the Israelis who went AWOL helped them considerably. And we helped in the ways that have been indicated.
Fine.
All right.
Thank you.
Now, I hope that that's of some help to you.